It's 2016, and you just beat the Elite Four. We're in Pokemon X and Y, and you encounter the third legendary of the Kalos region. But something's off. It all feels just incomplete and unfinished, as if Zygarde was disconnected from the storyline from X and Y. But then almost a decade later, Game Freak tied the story of Zygarde in the most extraordinary way possible. They made the single most overpowered Pokemon ever, the legendary with the most aura in the entire franchise. Let's establish the groundwork here. Zygarde has always been the Order Pokemon, the guardian of the ecosystem, the being that maintains balance when the forces of life and destruction threaten to tear everything apart. But here's what makes this so brilliant. Zygarde was never meant to be understood immediately. Its entire existence is modular, scattered, waiting for the moment when it needs to assemble into something greater. The 50% form we first encounter, that's just Zygarde operating at half capacity, cruising through the world, monitoring, observing. Then we learned about the 10% form, this sleek hound-like guardian that can respond to threats quickly. And complete form? That's when all the cells and cores come together to form this towering titan. But even that wasn't the final form. That wasn't Zygarde pushed to its absolute limit. See, what Game Freak understood brilliantly is that Zygarde needed something more than just size or a different configuration. It needed the primal intensity of Mega Evolution, that raw, desperate transformation that occurs when the bond between Pokemon and purpose reaches its breaking point. And that's exactly what we get in Legend ZA. The setup was always there. Kalos, the region of beauty and harmony, was also the birthplace of Mega Evolution, the ultimate weapon that nearly destroyed everything. The conflict between Xerneas and Yveltal, and lurking beneath it all, Zygarde, watching, waiting, ready to intervene when the balance tipped too far. The narrative perfection. Now let's talk about the story implications surrounding Mega Zygarde, because this is where Legend ZA elevates everything to another level. The game takes place in Lumiose cities when humans are pushing the boundaries of what Mega Evolution can do when they're experimenting with forces they don't fully comprehend. And here's the kicker. They're not just playing with fire, they're playing with the fundamental fabric of reality itself. Mega Evolution was always portrayed as this double-edged sword. Yes, it grants incredible power, but at what cost? We've seen Pokédex entries describing the pain, the transformation, the toll it takes. But what happens when you apply that concept to a being whose entire purpose is maintaining balance? What happens when the Guardian itself must transcend its limits? That's where Mega Zygarde enters the picture, and the thematic weight is absolutely staggering. This isn't just another transformation for a competitive edge or to look cool in battles. This is Zygarde recognizing that standard measures won't suffice. The threat facing Kalos, facing the world, is so catastrophic that it requires the Order Pokemon to break its own rules, to push beyond the equilibrium it normally maintains, and become something more aggressive, more decisive, more absolute. The brilliance here is in the contradiction. Zygarde exists to preserve balance, but Mega Evolution is inherently unbalanced. Its excessive power, raw transformation, temporary but overwhelming force. For Zygarde to embrace Mega Evolution means the situation has deteriorated beyond conventional intervention. It's the ecological guardian saying, "The scales have tipped so far that I must become the counterweight no matter the cost." And this ties directly into the story of Legend ZEA. We're up against Ange the Tower, an entity or phenomenon that threatens to consume Lumiose City, possibly all of Kalos. 3 millennia ago, AZ was a king, caught up in a devastating war that consumed Kalos. Many Pokemon lost their lives, and in the chaos, AZ's beloved Floette, a Pokemon with a unique black flower, was sent to the front lines where she died. Most people grieve and eventually move on. AZ had the resources and knowledge to do something about it. He created a device that could grant life, and he used it to revive his Floette. It worked. She came back. But here's the horrifying truth. AZ was so hurt and traumatized that they had hurt his beloved Floette that he relaunched the ultimate weapon to end the war once and for all. Floette was brought back at the cost of countless other lives. AZ's rage at the war hadn't subsided. He couldn't forgive the world that had hurt the Pokemon he loved, so he transformed his device into the ultimate weapon. The weapon fired a beam of light that reached into the heavens and poured down, burning away everything upon the earth. AZ ended the war by becoming destruction itself, committing genocide to stop the conflict. The war ended, but Floette realized the truth. She understood that the life AZ had given her was stolen from other Pokemon, that thousands or millions had died so she could live. She couldn't bear it. Floette left AZ and wandered alone for 3,000 years. AZ has been alive since before the rise and fall of countless civilizations. He watched empires crumble. Technology evolved from primitive tools to modern innovations. Outlived everyone he ever knew. And through all that time, the one being he loved most wanted nothing to do with him because of what he'd done. But AZ didn't just wander aimlessly. About 2,000 years ago, during his wandering, a man of great power asked for his help with a way to protect Kalos. Instead of making another device that would take from others, AZ decided to make one that would share the eternal life he had given Floette. He called it Ange, and he embedded it into Prism Tower in Lumiose City. Ange was designed as the opposite of the ultimate weapon. Where the ultimate weapon destroyed life, Ange would grant eternal life to all living beings it touched. It was AZ's attempt to give meaning to the curse he had placed on Floette, his way of atoning by creating something that could benefit everyone rather than stealing from them. He planned to activate it after reuniting with Floette, but that day never came. They lived in a time of peace, and Ange remained dormant. Fast forward to 5 years before Legends, Lysandra, leader of Team Flare, discovered the ultimate weapon buried beneath Geosenge Town. His philosophy was that the world was growing too crowded, that resources would run out, and the only way to create a world of beauty was to reduce the number of living things. So he activated the ultimate weapon. There was an explosion. Zygarde, the legendary guardian of Kalos, intervened and used its power to protect all living things in the area from the deadly light, saving even Lysandra himself, but doing so exhausted Zygarde's power. And the weapon's activation had an unintended consequence. It awakened Ange. Ange, sensing danger, began emitting excessive amounts of mega power. This energy started causing wild Pokémon throughout Lumiose City to undergo rogue mega evolution, a state where Pokémon mega evolve without trainers and experience immense pain and aggression. This is the crisis the entire game revolves around, all because of AZ's original sin 3,000 years ago and Lysandra's actions 5 years ago. The design philosophy. Let's shift gears and talk about what Mega Zygarde actually looks like, because the design work here is absolutely phenomenal. Game Freak didn't just slap some spikes on complete form and called it a day. They understood that this transformation needed to communicate something essential about what Mega Zygarde represents. The first thing you notice is the intensity. Complete Form A Zygarde already has this imposing, titanic presence. It's massive, it's authoritative, it screams Guardian. But Mega Zygarde takes that foundation and sharpens it into something more militant, more ready for war. The geometric patterns across its body become more pronounced, more angular, giving it this almost crystalline quality that suggests it's hardened itself against whatever threats it faces. The colors shift too. That signature green that represents life and growth, it becomes more vivid, almost luminescent, like Zygarde is channeling the very essence of vitality itself. The black and red accents become more prominent, reminder that this is a being that understands destruction must sometimes answer destruction, that protecting life means being willing to end threats decisively. And then there's the hexagonal motif that runs throughout the design. Those hexagons aren't just aesthetic, they represent the core and cells, the fundamental building blocks of Zygarde's existence, now arranged in perfect, unbreakable formation. It's showing you that this is Zygarde at maximum cohesion, every single cell aligned toward a singular purpose, no fragment wasted, no potential left untapped. The eyes are what really sell it. They burn with this righteous intensity that tells you this Pokemon isn't just powerful, it's resolute. It has made a decision and nothing will deter it from its purpose. There's no uncertainty in those eyes, no hesitation, just absolute conviction. Power beyond measure. Alright, now let's get into the fun part, just how absurdly powerful Mega Zygarde actually is. And I need to emphasize something crucial here. We're not talking about competitive viability or tier lists or any of that metagame analysis. We're talking about raw, canonical, in-universe power. We're talking about what this Pokemon can actually do in the narrative context of Legends ZA. First, the stats. When Complete Form Zygarde has a base stat total of 708. That's Arceus territory, that's Creation Trio levels. But Mega Evolution typically adds 100 points to a Pokemon's base stat total. That potentially puts Mega Zygarde at 808, which would make it one of the most statistically overwhelming Pokemon ever conceived. But Game Freak knew that it would literally break the power scaling system. So instead of 100 base stats, they gave Mega Zygarde only a 70 stat boost. We're still looking at something that numerically eclipses almost everything else in existence. But stats are just numbers on a screen. Let's talk about what Mega Zygarde actually does in Legends ZA's climax, because this is where the glazing really begins, and it's completely justified. When Ange the Tower emerges as the final the game makes it absolutely clear that this isn't just another legendary Pokemon gone rogue or a villain scheme spiraling out of control. Ange represents genuine existential danger. It's warping reality, consuming matter, threatening to reduce Lumiose City and potentially the entire Kalos region to absolute nothingness. The player character, despite everything they've accomplished, despite all the Pokemon they've trained and bonds they have formed, cannot stop this alone. Mega Energy lets Pokemon use a powerful version of moves called Plus moves. The game suggests that Plus moves are like Z moves, meaning the Z Crystal phenomenon was also a consequence of the launch of the ultimate weapon by AZ 3,000 years ago. The Tower Ange takes over Mega Floette, causing it to go rogue and causing every Pokemon nearby to undergo Rogue Mega Evolution as well. But the protagonist, with the help of Zygarde, who tests you throughout the entire game, is given a small pebble as a token of respect. But it turns out that in the heat of the battle, that gift from Zygarde turns into the first Mega Stone, which can Mega Evolve Zygarde, Mega Zygarde, the absolute form, the final answer. And the game doesn't hold back in showing you what this transformation means. The Mega Evolution sequence itself is reportedly unlike anything we've seen before. All across Kalos, every cell, every core, every fragment of Zygarde's distributed consciousness converges on Lumiose City. The ground shakes, the sky tears open with green light, and then Mega Zygarde manifests in its complete glory, towering over the city, a colossus of order standing against the void. The climactic battle, the battle against Rogue Mega Floette alongside Mega Zygarde, is apparently the single most spectacular set-piece Game Freak has ever created, and from everything we know, they weren't exaggerating. This isn't a standard trainer battle where you're commanding the Pokemon. This is a collaborative struggle where you're fighting alongside Mega Zygarde, supporting it, enabling it to channel its full power against a threat that defies conventional combat. Mega Zygarde's moveset in this battle showcases exactly why it's the perfect counter against Ange. We're talking about attacks that don't just damage but restore order. 1,000 arrows and 1,000 waves take on new significance here. They're not just ground-type moves anymore. They're Zygarde imposing physical reality on something that wants to dissolve it, pinning down the void, forcing it to exist so it can be combated. And then there's Core Enforcer, which in this context becomes something else entirely. Core Enforcer has always been about suppressing abilities, about reducing opponents to their base form. Against Nihil Light, it becomes Zygarde's ultimate assertion of order. You will exist within the rules, you will be subject to natural law, your attempt to exist outside reality will be rejected. As the battle reaches its crescendo, Mega Zygarde doesn't just overpower Nihil Light through brute force, it restructures the battlefield itself. The very terrain responds to Mega Zygarde's presence, becoming ordered, stable, real. Zygarde's Core Enforcer changes into Nihil Light. It's a pun on annihilate. The name itself, Nihil meaning nothing, void, absence, suggests something that doesn't just destroy but erases, that doesn't just kill but removes things from existence entirely. How do you fight nothingness? How do you combat something that seeks to reduce everything to zero? Mega Zygarde's last resort is in its mega form to annihilate and turn Ange into nothingness. It's perfect storytelling. This is the Order Pokemon operating at maximum capacity. It's not just fighting an enemy, it's rewriting the fundamental rules of the engagement to ensure victory. Nihil Light wants to reduce things to nothing. It fills the void with absolute existence, with such overwhelming presence that absence cannot stand against it. The visual spectacle of this moment is breathtaking. Mega Zygarde, glowing with that intense green radiance, standing at the center of reality itself, holding the line against oblivion, every cell visible across its form pulsing with synchronized energy. Lumiose City's lights flickering back on behind Mega Zygarde as it pushes back the void, section by section, street by street, until finally the threat is contained. The thematic triumph. What makes this so perfectly executed from a storytelling perspective is that Mega Zygarde's victory isn't just about being stronger, it's about being exactly what was needed at exactly the right moment. This is the payoff to everything Zygarde represents as a concept. Think about the thematic layers at play here. Mega Evolution has always been about bonds, about the connection between trainer and Pokemon, pushing them both beyond limits. But Mega Zygarde's transformation isn't triggered by a trainer's bond. It's triggered by Zygarde's bond with the ecosystem itself, with the world it's sworn to protect. Every living thing in Kalos, every tree, every river, every person, every Pokemon, they're all part of the network that enables Mega Zygarde's transformation. It's the ultimate expression of interconnection, of how individual elements combine into something greater, where Ange is, isolation, erasure, the end of connection. Mega Zygarde is the embodiment of unity. It's literally composed of hundreds of individual cells choosing to act as one. Its power comes from cooperation, from every piece working in perfect harmony. It's thematically perfect. When Mega Zygarde finally neutralizes Mega Ange, when Lumiose City is saved and reality is secured, the transformation doesn't end in triumph. It ends in exhaustion. Mega Zygarde reverts, and Zygarde separates back into its cores and cells, scattering across Kalos once more, needing time to recover from the toll of becoming something it was never meant to sustain. It was a last resort. It was the Guardian breaking itself to save what it guards. And that's heroism in its purest form. This represents Game Freak at their absolute best, doing what Pokemon has always done when it's firing on all cylinders, creating beings that are more than just battle mechanics, more than just stat distributions and type matchups. Mega Zygarde is the resolution to a story that began in Generation 6, a generation that honestly got criticized for not fully exploring Zygarde's potential. But that wasn't incomplete storytelling, that was patience. That was Game Freak saying, "You don't understand what we're building yet, but you will." And now we do. Legends ZA takes everything that Zygarde was, everything it represented, and pushes it to the absolute logical extreme. This is how you do a legendary Pokemon justice. You don't just make it strong for the sake of being strong. You don't just give it a cool design and call it a day. You embed it in narrative, you give it meaning, you make its power inseparable from what it represents. Mega Zygarde is powerful because the story demands that level of power. It looks epic because it's fulfilling an epic purpose. Every aspect of its design, its abilities, its role in the plot, they all align perfectly. And let's be real about something else. Mega Zygarde looks absolutely incredible. The design is clean, imposing, memorable. When you see it standing there, Guardian Incarnate, Protector at maximum intensity, you believe it can do what the story says it can do. There's no dissonance between appearance and function. It looks exactly how the ultimate expression of order and protection should look. Powerful, unbreakable. This is the standard that legendary Pokemon should be held to. Not just, is it strong in battles, but does it mean something? Mega Zygarde means everything. It's the answer to questions Pokemon fans have been asking for years. It's the culmination of themes that have run through the franchise since Generation 6. It's proof that Game Freak still knows how to craft these incredible moments that remind us why we fell in love with Pokemon in the first place. Please watch this video, I put in a lot of effort in it. Or you can watch another Zygarde video on my VGC channel. Anyways, subscribe.